Welcome everyone to the course of international business. In the last few classes we have been discussing about the factors that affect the international business, which every manager in a firm should understand and try to keep updated, right. So, some of them being, for example, we talked about the cultural factor, the political factor, the legal factor, and then we started about the economic factors, right. So, we discussed how economic factors affect the any firm for that, right, because economy of a country is one of the most important things. It decides the living condition of the people. Okay. So, when we talked about the economic condition, we talked about some of the terms like GDP, gross domestic product, GNP, the purchasing power parity, and kind of terms which were used in the last class. Then we talked about how poverty and how inflation kind of things, they also affect economic situation. We are going to do it in detail today. We also learnt how human development index becomes one of the factors and how it influences the entire economy of a nation. So, as a whole, we have understood by now that economy has a very vital role to play, because just to start this lecture I would start with an example. Let us assume in a famine, when there is a famine, right, people die of hunger. So, there is an argument, why do people die of hunger? Is it because there is a shortage of food? Is it because there is a distribution problem? Is it because there is some other reason? What is the basic reason why people die? So, economists like Amartya Sen, they finally eventually they came to a conclusion and stated that it is not that food is not available, grains is not available, but what happens is people's purchasing power comes down, right. So, as a low purchasing power, they are unable to buy the grains and the food products. So, as a result of it, there is a severe malnutrition and crisis which occurs in a country or a place. So, when we have understood economy and we are getting into it, let us move further today with some of the other things. For example, let us start with what are the components of an economy. So, when we are saying the components of economy, there are certain factors which managers need to understand. For example, inflation, how inflation affects, what is inflation by the way, and how it affects the economy, right. Unemployment or employment level in the country, level of debt a country goes through or has, what is the income distribution level, how is income being distributed in the country, is there a serious heavy large gap, or it is equally distributed, what kind of a distribution system is there, what is the level of poverty, what is labor cost, what is the productivity of a nation, and finally the balance of payment. So, these are some of the components which we will understand, we will talk in detail today in this lecture. So, let us start with inflation. So, what is inflation by the way? This word every day we when we come across to some news, and we are finding, we are talking about, and we see, listen to that there is a growth in inflation or inflation has come down. So, what is this inflation all about? So, as it says in a layman's word, inflation is nothing but a rise in prices of some basic commodities or basic products, right, which we use in our day to day life, right. So, if you take this, what it says is sustained rise in prices measured against a standard level of purchasing power. It results when aggregate demand grows faster than the supply. So, when there is a large amount of demand, but supply is less, what happens? The price of the commodities increases, right. As a result of it, inflation grows. So, if there is sufficient amount of supply and there is a purchasing power with people, then inflation would be in control. There is an argument whether inflation is good or bad. So, this argument has two places. Many a times we say, or largely we understand inflation is to be a very dangerous thing and it is not very good for any country. But inflation, a moderate inflation is always a healthy sign, because a moderate inflation helps a country to grow, right. So, as an economist one has to understand, or a student of economics, one has to understand how much inflation is a bad inflation, or up to what level can we sustain it, and beyond that it is dangerous, right. So, what is that good and the bad side of it? Managers must watch its influence on many parts of the economic environment such as interest rates, how inflation affects the interest rates, the exchange rate, the cost of living, the stability of the current political system and the climatic condition. So, inflation has an influence, right, on all these factors. Now, if the inflation grows, that means the country would like to ensure that there is less money in the market, and to do that they would increase the interest rate for that, right. So, with the increase in interest rate, they would ensure the liquidity in the market is lessened. So, that it would reduce the inflation. So, this kind of things, inflation is connected with a lot number of factors, okay, and it drives the economy to a very large extent. So, stability of a current political system, how if the inflation is large, even governments topple, there is a change in government systems because people are not happy and there is an unrest, and there is a very high chance of a civil unrest which can result in a change in the government also, right. So, all these things taken together, inflation puts a very big plays a very big role. Let us take this example. The prices of oil and inflation have been always closely related, right. So, if oil increases oil price, inflation tends to grow, right. Why? Because whatever transportation happens, all this are happening through the vehicles which are using oil, and now if the price of oil will increase, the prices of this transportation will increase, which leads to a increase in the cost of the product, right. So, when the value of the precious black liquid or petroleum goes up, inflation follows in the same direction. So, if there is a rise in price of oil, inflation also will tend to grow up, right. May not be in a linear fashion, but there is a growth, right. The reason for this is because oil is a major commodity that is linked to a lot of things in our life, okay. So, the direct association between oil and inflation was first recorded in the 1970s. It was at the time when the cost per barrel rose from $3 in 73 to $40 in 79. So, you can understand what was the rate of growth, an astronomical growth rate. This allowed the consumer price index, the primary measurement of inflation, which is through which it is calculated, to double from 41.2 to 86.3 in 1980. So, inflation grew rapidly because of an increase in the oil price. Even recently we have seen in India, inflation was mildly controlled after when there was a change from one government to the other, because of the one big reason was that the oil prices came down, the price per barrel came down, the oil prices. Second is natural disasters cause inflation by disrupting the supply. So, this is another reason, right, but we have very little control over this. Yes, a good optimized technique or a good governance can help it, but you cannot naturally control obviously a natural disaster. A good example is right after Japan's earthquake in 2011. It disrupted the supply of auto parts. It also occurred after the hurricane, very famous Katrina, right. When the storm destroyed the oil refineries, gas prices soared, and as we have said, when there was a soaring in the increase in the gas prices and oil prices, automatically inflation grew. Now, let us see this case. Now, hyperinflation is a situation where inflation has crossed its definition is there, is when the prices of the goods and services rise more than 50% in a month, right. So, this is a very serious condition. So, this is no country would want, but why does it happen, right, and let us take an example also. So, let us understand first what causes the hyperinflation. So, as we said, when the price of goods and services rise more than 50% in a month, it is a case of hyperinflation, right. It starts when a country's government begins printing money to pay for its spending. So, it is not a very wise idea to print money, right, but some of the governments have done it. As the government increases the money supply, so more money is available with people, the rise of prices, the commodities, there is a price rise of the commodities, right, and as there is a price rise of the commodities, because people have more money to spend, so they can pay. So, that is why the prices also rise, and as the price rises, regular inflation happens or inflation rises. Why then, what is the problem? one needs to understand very as a student of social science and management that yes, money supply has increased, but money supply has not been distributed equally in everybody's hand. So, that is why the inflation cause is a major concern. Okay. So, instead of tightening the supply to stop inflation, the money supply, the governments keeps printing more. Now, with too much currency, prices skyrocket. So, this is a very beautiful diagrammatic representation which is you can understand. So, the most well known example of hyperinflation was during the Weimar Republic in Germany in the 20s. First, the German government printed money to pay for the World War I. From 1913 to the end of the war, the number of Deutschmarks in circulation went from 13 billion to 60 billion. Okay. Now, the government also printed government bonds. So, which is again another kind of a tool which affects the inflation like the cash, right. German sovereign debt went from 5 billion to 156 billion marks. So, all this resulted in a very hyperinflation situation for Germany. Okay. Another example, very recent one, not very old, is Venezuela. What happened in 2014, the inflation rate in Venezuela reached 69%, which was the highest in the world, right. And who was the ruler at that time? Nicolas Maduras, and he was the president. In 2015, this rate was 181%. Now, you see this is 69, now it has moved to 181. Again it was the highest in the world and the highest in the country's history at that time. Now, that did not stop there. The rate now reached 800% in 2016. So, 2014, 2015, 2016 from 69 to 800%, and then in 2017 over 4000%, right, and in 2018 it is 16,98,488%. So, you can see what has happened to the economy, right, with Venezuela spiraling into hyperinflation, right. While the Venezuelan government has essentially stopped producing official inflation estimates after that, inflation economist Steve Hanke estimated the rate at that time to be 5,220%. In April 2019, the IMF estimated that inflation would reach 1 million by the percentage by the end of 2019, right. So, you can understand that means there is a lot of money, but the money has no value at all because the cost of goods is also skyrocketing, right. So, that means what, people will go with bags of money and maybe buy a loaf of bread, that is the situation. Potential causes of the hyperinflation include heavy money printing and deficit spending, another bad thing. Now, not only money printing, but again what you are doing is you are spending money by taking maybe loans, right. So, you do not have the money to spend, but you are still spending on what? On what basis will you spend? You take loans from somebody which you have to pay. Today Pakistan is in a very bad state because they have taken a lot of loan from China, and today as of now Pakistan is in a terrible situation. They do not even have money left for more than 3 months. Implications: hyperinflation quickly devalues the local currency in foreign exchange markets as the prices of the goods and services in conjunction with the increase in money supply, right. The practice causes a vicious cycle now. As prices rise, people hoard more goods. See, all about economy is behavior. Economy is nothing more, to me, if I understand correctly, economy is nothing but a way of human behavior, understanding that human behavior that is in connection with one tool which is called currency or money, right. How do humans behave with the tool called currency or money, whatever you say, how do they behave with it? This entire behavior of human beings in relation to the currency, to me, is economy, right. So, people would hoard more, they would try to save, they would try to keep, in turn creating a higher demand for goods and further increasing prices. If hyperinflation continues, it causes a major economic collapse. So, such examples we have seen in Venezuela, we have seen in Argentina, we have seen Zimbabwe. So, there have been lot of examples. So, this is an example of we have taken from the IMF data. So, inflation rate, if you can see, these are some of the indicators given to you. So, 25% or more, right, inflation rate, average consumer prices of some countries has been given. So, where it is, if you see the red color, so these are like the reddish ones which has got 25% or more, which have a 10 to 25% inflation rate, is in slightly in the in the darkish region, and then it goes on. So, 0 to 3% is green and dark green is less than 0%. So, let me show you some of the countries if I want to show you. So, for example, let us take this one, the red one, right. So, in case I would not forget, so I have also brought it in writing for you. So, Argentina, right. So, let us take some more red ones, let us say this one. So, this is Iran, right. To this one is I think Sudan, right. So, this is Sudan. Then you have here Libya. So, these are some of the economies which have a very high. Where is India? India is somewhere here, right. India is somewhere here. So, India comes and then a 3 to 10% condition, right. And if you see the good ones, the green ones, for example, Australia, right, this is Australia. Then you have this one is if I am not wrong, China, right, China. This is Russia, the Russian Federation basically, and then you come this side, let us say this is the US, right, Canada and US, right. So, this is Canada, so this is the USA. So, there are different kinds of conditions which I have mentioned. So, you can see all of them, and this gives you an idea about the inflation rate and how they are faring in the different parts of the world, right. Unemployment is another indicator which affects the economy largely. Now, what is this? Share of unemployed workers seeking employment for pay relative to the total civilian labor force, right. So, I will explain it. ILO, the International Labour Organization, unemployment rates refer to any person, according to ILO, it refers to any person that is not working, but is willing and able to work. So, what does the ILO say? The ILO says that unemployment rates refers to any person that is not working, but is willing to work. He is interested to work, they are interested to work, but they are not getting a work. So, in that condition it would only be categorized in the unemployed sector category, right, and actively seeking work, they are looking for work. So, but if somebody is not looking for work, then he is not part of the labor force, it is as simple as that. What it does? It reduces economic growth. Due to unemployment, economic growth is comes down. There is a social pressure, right, somebody has money, somebody has do not have money. So, there is a chance of crime and all these things getting larger, provoking the political uncertainty and show how well a country productively uses its human resources. So, unemployment is very important, because the more unemployment, and we will see later on that the more unemployment is there, that means people do not have the power to purchase things, they do not have money, right, and as they do not have money, then what will happen? Then they will not be able to buy things, and as they will not have money to buy things, automatically there will be a fall in the demand of the goods, and as there is a demand of goods falls down, automatically there is a loss of job, and again when there is a loss of job, so there is a loss of money, earning capacity. So, this is again a cycle, a vicious cycle, right. Unemployment rate is calculated as, for example, persons unemployed divided by the total labor force, right. Now, what is this? Persons unemployed divided by labor force is person employed plus persons unemployed into 100. This is how it is calculated. These are again some of the examples which I have shown you. So, for example, you can see some countries like Libya, right. Libya is somewhere here, right. If I am not wrong, Libya, exactly this one is Libya, right. So, this one is Libya, right. Then we have South Africa, which is the end, the tip, I think, yes. So, this is South Africa, South Africa, South Africa. So, these are some of the countries which have got a high unemployment rate, right. India has not got a much problem, but then that is dicey to understand, because how it is calculated, sometimes unemployment calculation is a little confusing thing. Okay. So, there is something called a misery index. Now, what is this? What does it say? The sum of a country's inflation and an unemployment rate taken together is called the misery index, right. Higher the sum, that means the inflation plus the unemployment, higher the sum, the greater the economic misery, and more likely consumer and companies will curtail spending and investment. If you remember, during any recession, what happens is largely companies tend to stop their investments into marketing, promotion of goods and all, right. But some companies have understood this is not a very wise way of addressing the problem of recession. If you do that, then again it is a spiral, it is a vicious cycle, which again reduces your chances of people buying your product. So, some intelligent and good companies have always understood that even during the time of recession, there should be some money spent on marketing and branding of products, right. So, that when the good time comes, you are the most ready company, you are the company with the best condition, so that you can, people can automatically remember you and can try your products out. This index gauges the health of the economy, since both high unemployment and high inflation are major factors to the average wage earner, right. With the help of the misery index, the economic health of the country can be seen, which will be helpful while conducting an analysis of the economy. So, if you can understand the misery index, it helps you to understand the economic health of the nation. Some other factors affecting unemployment are labor regulations and working age population, which are, for example, labor regulation is one which, like in India, our labor laws are very archaic, very old, right. So, hardly they had changed from the British times, right. So, now many, what happens is, because of this very stringent norms where you can't remove people, it is very difficult to remove even one person, what happens is the private companies now are in a problem. So, now there have been some changes in the recent past, but earlier days there used to be a lot of problems. So, they if they wanted some workers also, they would not hire it. Why? Because they were afraid they have to keep those workers for lifelong. So, now that is too much of a burden for these companies. So, they wanted maybe for a time period 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, whatever, 6 months. So, they could have hired. Now, that would have been still an earning mechanism for the workers, but because of the fear that these regulations will be will be legal regulations are very damaging, the companies do not hire. So, now not hiring creates a very difficult situation, and what they do is they try to optimize with the existing labor, but the existing labor, because it knows it is protected by the government to a very large degree, as it happens, I feel I can openly say this, in the government sector in India, the people are protected. So, as they feel protected, so then what they do is they do not try to improve their productivity, they are happy doing whatever they like. So, that hampers the growth of a company, right. So, at one end you cannot hire good people, at the other end the people who are working, they are not interested and they are not very productive in nature, right. Second is the working age population. With now this is a natural condition which cannot be controlled, very largely it cannot be controlled, because now the working age population, for example, in Japan is a very aged country. That means the average age of the people is high, on the higher side. So, more people are growing old, whereas on the other side India is in a young country. So, when it is a young country, more people are coming to the job market every year. So, if we cannot afford, if we cannot provide them jobs, then automatically the unemployment rate can grow tremendously, right. But on the other hand, Japan, the might be the unemployment rates, the demand in the employment might not be very high, because many people are getting old now, right. So, this is the condition which affects it. Let us see this example, we will understand unemployment. So, is a person working is one question, right. Yes, there are two possibilities, yes or no. If it is a yes, then let us say this is a number we have taken for a calculation, then these people are the employed people. So, in this case, in the example we have taken 1,44,958 people are employed. Let us say not employed, or is the person working? No. So, is the person, now there are two questions again, is the person looking and available, looking for work? Is he looking for work? If it is a yes, then he comes under the unemployed, right, which is let us say 10,080. If he is not looking for a work, then he comes in the not in the labor force, which is in this case are let us say 79,038, right. So, which can happen, right. For example, people working in their own farms, agricultural fields, they do not look for jobs many a times, somebody has his own business, somebody does a handicraft. So, the government tries to, every government tries to increase the business climate of a country, so that people are self employed. They do not mind, they are not looking for a job. The unemployment rate in August, that is why our Prime Minister had given a statement which was a lot of hue and cry, when he said people could make some fry, some items and sell it in the market, even that is a job. But then he meant here that is any job, it is creating job, right. So, if you are even having a stall where you are making food items and selling it to the public, still it is a job, because you are creating more economical conditions, you are hiring people, you are giving them wages. So, that is not to be looked at a negative side only, it has some positive connotations, but yes, you might define jobs in different manners, that is a different story. So, the unemployment rate in August 2008 was 6.5%. Now, how did it come? You see, 10,080, which is the unemployed rate, divided by 10,080 plus 1,44,958. Now, if you take this total, this is 6.5%. If you would have added this one, then this scene would look very bad, right. Okay. This another thing that comes into the discussion is debt. What is the relationship with debt and economy? Debt is basically the total of a government's financial obligations, right. So, financial obligations. So, there could be two kinds when you talk about debts, internal debt and external debt. Debt, as we understand, we have taken some money from, borrowed some money or something, so that is a debt, right. Most countries around the world rely on sovereign debt to finance their government. So, they ask money from foreign players and foreign other countries and all to run their own economy. So, that is something we talk about, we say is a debt, right. When this debt is used in moderation, it is good. Suppose you want to for example, in finance also we have heard the debt way of going for generating revenue or the equity based system, which is better. So, there are a lot of arguments for it. If you can use your debt properly, then it is always good. Having no debt does not mean that a company is always doing good, because if you have taken debt, taken loan and you are using it for productive purposes, for example, like more schools, more hospitals and all, then it is good for the economy. But if you are not using it in that way and you are wasting your money for let us say other purposes which are not creating more jobs or more productivity, then that is a dangerous condition, right. So, but too much debt can lead to a number of problems, because you will not be able to even pay the interest. Then what happens is it goes on, the principal plus interest goes on piling up, and then you are in a position where you might not be able to pay at all, right. So, the debt to GDP ratio is one of the indicators, is designed to help investors determine if a country has too much debt or not. So, for example, when a foreign investor would come to India, he would like to see the debt to GDP ratio for India. Some of the signals for growing debt, public debt is, for example, then the government increases the tax, right. He cuts the public expenditures. So, basic expenditures which are important, they are cut down, growth is reduced, inflation goes on rising, and austerity measures, again like cutting public expenditure is one of them, is rising. So, in these conditions we would say maybe the country is going in a debt condition and there is a lot of debt, which to manage it they are now using this kind of techniques, but they may not be the wise techniques, right. So, anyway, we can understand now that how inflation and debt taken together, right, has this is one thing which I wanted to show you. Some of the top the countries, how much government debt exists, for example, of 2018 this value is taken. So, they are ranked, some countries, the top 5 leaders. United States has a debt of this much, right, in billions, which is 31.8% of the global debt. Japan 18.8, China, it goes on, right. Together just these 5 countries together hold 66% of the world's debt in nominal terms, good for a total of 41.6 trillion, right. But if you can see, interestingly, all these are economies which are growing. So, from here also, if you do not understand anything, still you can say that all the time debt is not as bad as it looks. Okay. On the other side, if you look at the top 5 for debt to GDP, the number 1 country that comes from in debt to GDP is Japan, right, which has 18.8% of the global debt here, and when you talk about the debt to GDP, it is 239, 240%, right. Greece is 181.6%, Greece is in a bad condition, right. So, if you can see here, Japan's 2018 debt to GDP ratio is over 200%, but its economy received very little analyst attention because they are still doing good, while Greece is only 160% and it has been on the verge of collapse. Why? Why did it happen? Reason: 90% of the debt in Japan is held domestically. So, it is not from outside. High economic growth, they are using their money well. Viable plan to address, they have a good plan to address the GDP to debt ratio, right. So, this is something which we have covered. So, today we have understood how inflation and debt and all these things, how they are affecting unemployment, they are affecting the economy of a country, right. In the coming lecture, we will carry on from here and understand some of the more components which are connected with the economic factors and how they affect the international business, right. So, thank you for the day, have a nice day.